Appreciate you clicking on this video. Last night I went to go watch the new Zack Snyder movie, Rebel Moon. And with Rebel Moon, we get an intergalactic story where a planet of farmers are being terrorized by an evil empire, leading our main character of Korra to seek out warriors that can come back and defend their defenseless little planet. And that's all pretty much say without any spoilers, you guys. This will be a spoiler-free review. Rebel Moon. So this is one of those larger Netflix movies where they've dumped buckets of money and are anticipating a large franchise. Not only do they already have a part 2 planned, they have another sequel they want to do, maybe some spin-offs, TV show, even video games. Netflix wants to go all out, and we know they're always on the lookout for their own franchise. I, for one, as a movie fan, love the partnership that Netflix and Zack Snyder have, because although I've liked and disliked some of his DC movies, I do believe Zack Snyder has it in him to make some really interesting movies. Like Army of the Dead, for one, I really like. I remember I was so pumped for that movie, I specifically looked for a movie theater that was playing it because I didn't just want to watch it at home. So now with Rebel Moon being described as Zack Snyder's interpretation of Star Wars, it would be heavily inspired by Seven Samurai. Looking at the trailer footage and what he's created from the planets, the aliens, the spaceships, okay, yeah, give it to me. And having finally sat down and checked it out, I wish I liked this more. Now, don't get me wrong, there is plenty to like in here, and I could definitely see a lot of diehard Zack Snyder fans still loving this movie either way, but I think there's a lot of things within the film, and even outside of the film, that really kind of pissed me off that Netflix did, but I'll get to those in my negatives. Talking about what I did really enjoy and what I thought were the strongest parts of Rebel Moon. For one, hats off to Zack Snyder for even going in to create your own Star Wars universe. This film does a lot of traveling, planets to planets, meeting different aliens, creatures. The design work on a lot of them is pretty intriguing. We go from spider-looking people to squid things to little blobs that control other humans. I'm like, wow, okay, they went out there. Sofia Boutella, who plays Korra in here, I really liked as the main character. She's definitely struggling with a lot of baggage from her past that gets explained to you word for word. But when it comes down to her action scenes, taking down bad guys, it was all super mesmerizing. It's definitely filmed in that Zack Snyder slow-mo heightened reality that I kind of enjoy. And jumping off that, yeah, it's got the Zack Snyder signature style. You know him. He loves his slow-mo, his character going through the light and mimicking a pose that maybe a Greek god would make. While I do have one major issue with a lot of the action scenes we do get in this movie, for the most part, really fun to watch. I love me a well-directed Zack Snyder action scene because they're pretty mesmerizing. I was also quite fond of Ed Skrein, who plays this admiral that comes to the planet, and even just his introductory scene with the farming people, intimidating them into sharing their food that they already barely have enough of for their own people. He did feel like a cool menacing threat throughout the movie, but sadly that's just kind of where a lot of the positives ended for me, because Netflix purposely put out an inferior movie in hopes to replicate the Snyder Cut fandom event. You guys know what I'm talking about here. There was years long of this fan and group that cultivated online yelling, "Release the Snyder Cut," and hey, props to them. They were loud enough that they made it happen, and thanks to them, we got an amazing Justice League movie that I love. But for some reason, Netflix wants to replicate that success, and it only hurts this current version of the movie that is being released this Friday. Zack Snyder describes this director's cut that he's working on as, it's not an extended cut of this movie. It's almost like a different movie. It's almost a different universe that R-rated cut lives within this movie. And I really don't understand this reasoning of having a director's cut for a movie that's going straight to streaming. The reason director's cut are even a thing is because of a lot of studio interference. They want a movie a certain way so it could be marketable, time constraints so they could play it multiple times in a theater. There was no way we were ever going to get a 4-hour cut of Justice League released worldwide by Warner Brothers, which is what led to them thinking they needed to almost refilm that entire movie with Joss Whedon. But in the world of streaming, where, I mean, you break all the rules, you're not worried about making money in the theaters, you're not releasing this worldwide. The main reason Zack Snyder says this is happening is because Netflix really wanted a PG-13 version of this movie. Why? So now knowing this, that there's a different version that's extended almost by an hour long, it's R-rated, it makes a lot of the flaws of Rebel Moon make a lot of sense. Because yeah, the action scenes are badass and they're cool and you're gonna enjoy them, but you can tell when the movie hard cuts to something it was gonna show you, whether it was, you know, someone's head splattering with blood or someone dying in a gruesome way that would have just looked so badass in the Zack Snyder directing style, but that was censored down, making a lot of the fight scenes end up feeling choppy because they purposely cut things that the camera was wanting to film. My other big issue with Rebel Moon is you really don't care about any of the characters. The one I was most intrigued with, Korra, yeah, I like her. She's the main focus, but this Seven Samurai approach where she's going off to different planets, locating warriors that have unique special skills that she has to then convince to get on her ship and then travel back to her planet to save her people, it's done in such a repetitive, bland way. It becomes, go to this place, go to this bar, say 3 sentences to the person, have a fight scene, all of a sudden they're on the team, rinse and repeat to the next person. And the thing that sucks about this layout is once they're part of the team, they're almost a ghost in the background. They say or almost do nothing once they're part of the team. They're literally just standing behind, looking at the main character, trying to convince the next person to join the team. And I gotta tell you, this convincing is not very good. It feels a lot like, will you join my team? No, I don't want to join your team. Please? Okay, I'll join your team. We get no real group dynamic in here, camaraderie, or even interactions between them that make them feel like a team. And that really sucks because when the action scenes were going down, you can see the uniqueness behind the characters and why maybe they would be essential parts to this team. But now you know there's an hour of this movie missing that had a lot of that interaction between the team members, getting together, building that bond that just isn't here in this current version. And since I feel most people are not going to end up caring about the characters because they just don't develop them well, you are just not going to be that interested when a twist happens or when a character dies. It feels a lot like you're just going through the motions instead of getting invested and immersed into this pretty gigantic world. And you know, the thing that kind of sucks about this for me is this movie just didn't do enough for me to get that interested, that when that director's cut, the R-rated version, the obviously superior version comes out, I don't even know if I want to sit down for it. There's going to be people who sit down and watch this movie and it already feels a little tedious, overlong to imagine to have to watch an extra hour of that to then get invested into everything going on. Might not be for everybody. So with that in mind, like, yeah, I think there will be enough in here to get some people intrigued. And heck, if you really like this version, the cut down PG-13 censored one, oh, I'm sure you're gonna love the extended one. But honestly, I was pretty let down by this. I much more prefer Army of the Dead. In fact, I want to see a sequel to that in that universe because that really had me intrigued. But I was just really hoping with how all out Netflix is gonna go with the Rebel Moon universe that I would be on that bandwagon going, yes, baby, give me 10 of these movies. But I wasn't. So for Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon, I'm going to give actions 4 stars. When it comes to the action department, Zack Snyder delivers. Whether you think the slow-mo is cheesy or not, it does make the action seem cool. It lets you see the scope of things, and even the choreography in that early fight scene within a barn was really badass. Comedy in the movie, I'm going to give it 2 stars. It's not particularly a funny movie. There's a joke here and there for some levity, but it's not really heavy on the joke. Drama in the movie, I'm going to give it 2.5 stars. I really wish I could have gotten into the story in here, what they're trying to do, but there was so much exposition dumping, so much of telling you instead of showing you. I guess with this being the first movie and setting up a larger universe, it has to do a lot of that world building, but I felt like some of the time used to set up one character could have been divided to really show the camaraderie between the entire group. Horror in the movie, I'll give 1 star to. That's mainly for the spider creature in this movie that I thought was kind of cool. Suspense in the movie, I will give 2.5 stars, mainly for the scene at the beginning when the Admiral comes in. It's just a really great tense moment with not knowing what they're about to do and how they're just going to squash this little colony. But from there, tension is lost because you just don't seem to care about the characters after that. Casual fans into Rebel Moon, I'm going to give it a B-. Cinephiles, I'm going to give it a C-. And critically, I'm going to give it a C-. In a world, if Rebel Moon was released worldwide in theaters, I think they did make the right choice in making this a streaming movie because I'd recommend to wait and rent it at home.
That'll do, Donkey. That'll do.
Again, that's just my opinion on the movie. Look, I respect and like Zack Snyder as a person. Heck, I see him talking about wanting to direct a Fortnite movie. A Zack Snyder Fortnite movie would be awesome. But Netflix and him going down this route of purposely making an inferior movie in hopes to replicate the Snyder Cut success really hurt the first impression of Rebel Moon, and first impressions are everything. Let me know what you guys thought about Rebel Moon, if you got around to watching it, what you liked, didn't like, anything and everything. Be sure and like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter at 3C Films or on TikTok at 3C Films. But as always, I'm Chris. Take care.